So welcome everyone. We start our session of dialogue. Today it's about plan. Why we need let go the plan. In reality is why we plan if we need to let go the plan. It's a huge subject in projects and also in blocked the projects. Then we thought could be really, really nice to reflect about that. Let's start with John and Pinakari.
Pinakari, as everyone who's done dragon dreaming knows, it's an Aboriginal word. It comes from the Great Sandy Desert in the middle of my state, Western Australia. And it's in the language of the Mardu Mandjilajara language, and it literally means ears up. And it's what kangaroos do when they pay attention. Because we say in dragon dreaming, we have this little voice of evaluation in our head. And in dragon dreaming workshops, those people who've worked with me know, I often say, I know what your little voice is saying. Your little voice is saying, yes, I have a little voice in my head. Or it might be saying, no, I don't have a little voice in my head. Or it might be saying, what little voice in the head is he talking about? That's the little voice that's evaluating all the time. And to be fully present, to be fully here, it's very important that we find a way of being able to silence that little voice. But because we, in our culture, get so much through our eyes, I usually say for Pinakari, let's just temporarily shut our eyes and take a breath. If you take a breath and listen, you will hear a sound of the air going in and the air coming out. And the air going in makes a different note, a different sound. And it's been scientifically proven that no two breaths ever make exactly the same sound. Each breath is unique, just like you are unique. No two people are ever identical. Even identical twins are not identical. So focus on your breathing, in and out. And listen to those two notes. It's like two notes in a song. And you are part of that song. Now, as you're breathing, see if you can feel the temperature. As you breathe in, the air is a little bit cooler. And as you breathe out, the air is a little bit warmer. Feel that difference in temperature. That temperature difference comes from the food you eat. And that food you eat, the energy of that food comes from the sun. We are solar powered. We get our energy from the sun. Feel that difference. Now, see if you can feel now that the air you breathe in is a little bit drier and the air you breathe out is a little bit warm, is a little bit moister. There's a little bit of moisture in the air you're breathing out. 70% of your body is water. And there's not a drop of that water that was there 2 weeks ago. You replace all the water in your body completely 26 times a year. And when does that moisture and the air stop being part of the world and start being a part of you? Is it when you're breathing the air in and it goes in through your nose? Or when it goes down your throat to your lungs? Or when it leaves your lungs and goes into your blood? Or when it leaves the blood and goes into the cells in your body? And when does the air stop being a part of you? Is it when it leaves the cells and goes back into the blood, or when it goes into your lungs, or it's breathed out through your throat and your nose? Or does it never stop being a part of you? We are all linked together through every breath we take. And what I'm going to do now is in a minute I'll get you to open your eyes, and I want you to focus. Focus on the colors and the sounds around you and what you hear. Okay, open your eyes now. And what you will notice is that colors seem to be brighter and sounds seem to be clearer. You see, that little voice in the head occupies 20 to 30% of your thinking. And when you silence that little voice, even if temporarily, you're able to be more present to yourself and present with others. So thank you. And see if you can learn to practice Pinakari. So you can do it with your eyes open too. Aboriginal people do. Ears up. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, John. You have the words to open the reflection about plan and why we need plan and let go the plan.
Yes. People who've done dragon dreaming know we talk about dreaming, and then we talk about planning, and then we talk about doing, and last of all, we talk about celebration. But one of the things, as people who know, you can make a plan. You can plan to make a plan. You can plan to do the planning to make a plan. And some people do. Planning is the threshold stage. Dragon dreaming, we say every project starts as the dream of one person. And when you have a dream, you have an intention. An intention is the source of the planning. And what happens when you have an intention? The first thing you have to do in the dreaming stage, it's the reason why 90% of projects get stuck in the dreaming, is you have to build a team around your dream. But you start the project with making a plan for yourself through your intention to convene a group of people to come together. But as we learn in Dragon Dreaming, to make your dream come true, you need to give up your intention and build a group intention. So that's the first time you give up the planning. So the group itself can come together and contribute their ideas through a generative question, to contribute their ideas and build a collective dream that then they carry into the planning stage, that collective dream. And as a result of that, you will gather a lot of information. And that information will change your intention. It'll change your awareness of yourself and awareness of the project. So, in the very first stage, because dragon dreaming is a fractal process, it means that each step in the process is repeated in each step. So, in the very first step, when you revise your awareness, it's letting go of the original dream and letting the project speak through you. Now, the planning stage. The planning stage starts with considering awareness. And as a result of that, considering considering all the information that you've gathered, considering the alternatives, you then take a number of those alternatives through the goal and the objective setting process to build the strategy. Now, the strategy is the plan. But that by itself is not enough. You need to put that plan into action in the environment, to test the plan, to trial the plan, perhaps create a pilot project. And as a result of what you learn by getting engaged in the environment in that way, that will lead to a process of reconsideration where you need to reconsider the plan that you've created and maybe reconsider the alternatives to vision again to overcome the problems that you've identified in the testing stage. Now, we move from the planning stage into the doing stage. And again, in the doing stage, we start with implementation. Implementation is when you take the plan and you put it into effect in the real environment. But hey, you do not know everything. And your team doesn't know everything. The real environment will challenge your plan. And you need to be flexible enough to monitor progress and to re-evaluate the plan that you've got, to change it, to let go of it sufficient so that you can be able to see how it can be improved. And then finally, if you go around that cycle a number of times, letting go and revising and reconsidering your plan, you'll be ready to move into the celebration. And again, here in the celebration, there is a planning stage. It's the stage of looking at the results of your project, both for you as an individual and for the environment as a whole, and for the community of people who've come together to create that project. Are those results positive or negative? Some will be positive, some will be negative, and you need to be discerning. You need to be able to discern the wisdom of being able to follow which ones are which. And that will lead to the reflection in which you go back and reconsider the celebration stage you've come through. And as a result of all of that, you go back to the beginning, back to the stage of awareness. So in each stage, you make a plan, but you need to be flexible enough to let it go. And by letting it go, it comes again. So you need to be able to see what emerges in the dreaming stage. You need to be able to say what you think in the planning stage. You need to be able to do what you say in the doing stage. And you need to be able to reflect on what has happened in the celebration stage. So, letting go, letting go, letting go is so important. Because what we find, if you don't let go, there's a reason why 90% of projects get stuck in the planning stage. And as I said at the beginning, you can make a plan and you can plan to make a plan and you can plan your planning to make a plan. Let it go, let it flow. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you all. Thank you, John. I will now add some thoughts and reflections about this subject from my side. Then we open for share together, and you also can share your experience or questions. No, what John talked now, it's really important also for we follow Dragon Dreaming. When we follow Dragon Dreaming, guide us in some way for these directions John just mentioned. I would like to make a question here about what is discernment? No, because when we say I need to have discernment, or I need to be flexible, to move, and to change the plans, to change the thoughts. So discernment and wisdom also, and the last step of Dragon Dreaming before the reflection properly, if you see the completely model of that, is discernment with wisdom. And in some way, it is after you dream, you plan, and you do. So it's the complete experience. For we achieve the discernment, some level of wisdom, we need to live the experience. And the complete experience is included thought and do and reflection about. Then I can learn about what I experience in concrete way in life, let's say this way. And how this process of learning happened, how this process of really live the experience is through feedback, through information, as some said. I receive, I collect information, and feedback in some level is pay attention what information comes through me, from my thoughts, from my actions, from what is happening around me. Is to be attentive enough about what's happening around me. And I would like start to think in terms of individual. When you think about us, about myself as individual, I have emotions, I have thoughts, I have body. And when I stay just in my thoughts, it is just possibilities, just the ideas, and many times ideal ideas. What we could say it's a perfect word I can build in my mind. It's the problem about plans, because when we are planning, we are not necessarily consider the obstacles we have in the real life, because real life here involve others, involve environment, involve weather, involve many other variables which I could think, but I don't have the dimension, the real dimension about how it will affect my thoughts, what I planned. Because this sometimes I can feel really fear when I'm in my thoughts, when I'm planning something. But when I start to move, to walking, I see it's not so terrible as I thought. So the first of all, we need to learn about ourselves, to know how I manage my emotions, what is my ideal from what I am thinking for this project, my life or relationship or whatever, because we know everything is a project from the vision of Dragon Dreaming. Everything is a project. So how I deal with that? We hear many times, I hear a lot, people say, I thought a lot, I need to stop to think. I would say, we don't need to stop to think. Maybe we need to learn to think, because the thoughts are really, really important. Because in some level, the thoughts, the plan, prepare myself for what will happen. What will happen when I go to the action. Maybe prepare myself for the risks I could take. It's really important to think. It's really important to learn how to think. It will help me include to be flexible, because I will know, I will have some idea about what can happen when I take my way to action. In Dragon Dreaming, we have, for example, a very, very good technique to use in the planning, but we have idea about what could be the obstacles. It's the force field analysis. Then I can create some strategy for that specific blockade or challenge can emerge for in middle of the way. And why we need to learn to let go the plan? Because it is a projection of something will happen, some possibilities. But when we are in the way, maybe what I thought will happen, that obstacles I thought will happen, maybe not, but I will be prepared for that. So it's really important to learn to think and we learn to do. And when I'm doing, learn to be open enough to change the way, but not change the goal. Because this, I need to know what I want in my future. What's my goal? What I need to active? Because in the way I can move a little bit, but I will active that. Some blockades we see and people stuck in planning and don't advance to the goal because don't want to change the plan. Don't want to change little bit the way to active that goal. And in this way can be your personal goal or the goal of the group. Doesn't matter what we want to active. If it's a collective project, we have other variable because the group needs to manage, to move, to change the plan, and the group itself needs to adapt for the new conditions, the environment, and the feedback is giving for you. So in some way, we can think that we change the planning because the obstacles, the challenges emerge, the blockades emerge, then we need to change. Because if everything can go in flow, according to what I thought, will not change. But life is not that. Life change everything. Each day I wake up, I am a little bit different. I'm feeling different. So it's to be adapted. It's to adapt for the conditions of life. I want to show you an image I took from Instagram. There is some people make really good images, and I believe when you see images, it makes us understand a little bit, understand more and better what we are explaining words. And what I'm saying is a little bit about that. It's the graphic, for example, about when we think. Sometimes I feel fear, anxiety, because that it's so huge. But when I start to do, maybe not. It's easy to manage and to adapt about what's happening. We could see it's the graphic of planning and doing. Maybe because this, when the group are planning, there is some conflicts emerge in the planning. Maybe because it's so some fear in each person on the group. And it is what I really want to show you. The goal is here, but the plan can change, the way can change, but we are looking the goal and moving for there. And how you can learn yourself and work with your group to move in the way and enjoy this movement. It's part of the process, and it's part of the learning, and part of for arise the creativity of the process and innovate in the process, find a new solutions. And this path is the way we find the new solutions. And something like that. When we resist to change, resist in front of some feedback we are receiving, we are moving around, just around. But we accept and find a new possibilities and find how to create new possibilities, new solutions for that challenge, and accept that we grow. And it is the process of learning, which we can take advantage of this process of planning and reflect about. And in dreaming, open for the creativity, open for the new dreams, for new solutions, to revise and reconsider the planning and redo, do again, doing new possibilities, do in different forms and reflect again. And it is the learning process. And it is the way to achieve the goal and the wisdom, of course, because you know what you are doing. You know why you are doing that. So just to open possibilities for we share, I would like now to open for comments. Maybe you share your experience around this, around planning too, and what are your challenges about that, or questions. Let's open the dialogue, which is more important for this meeting. You can just raise your hand, then you enter your microphone, and we can share. And thank
Welcome.
you to listen. Yes, Faria, you.
First of all, thank you so much for doing this. There's a really clear explanation of the emergent strategy behind each section. But the question that's been on my mind for the last few days is about the force field analysis and how often can this happen in a project? Is there a part, is this something that can happen in each phase, the dreaming, the planning, the doing, and the celebrating? Is it best to do it in the dreaming? Is it best to do it in the planning? Where and what are the parameters to be like, oh, now's the time? What are the nuances of when is the force field analysis like, oh, this is the time that we do this? And how do you discern this? That's been on my mind the last few days.
Good question. Thank you. The first force field analysis that I know of was created in 1947. And it was created by Kurt Lewin, who's called the father of action research. And he said what we need to do is to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative. And that's what the force field analysis tries to do. And in Dragon Dreaming workshops, where I have actually used force field analysis very often, is at the stage where we, before we create the goals and before we create the objectives. Because the goals and objectives very often grow out of the force field analysis. So that the the force field analysis that I like using is one that actually gets you in touch with your body. And so we map out the force field in this method on the floor. And each person has a little bundle of post-it notes which they're able to post at different positions on the floor, depending upon how positive the forces are or how negative the forces are. Where the most positive are +10, the most negative are -10, and the 0 position is in the middle. Now, it's possible to do that, as I said, as a part of the planning process, but it's also possible to do it in the doing stage as well. So I don't generally use the force field analysis in the dreaming stage, but in the planning stage and in the doing stage. But also, the force field can be revised again in a slightly different way in the celebration. Because as we say in the celebration, beyond right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And that field can be the field of a force field. And you can use that as a part of creating the story around which you can celebrate your project. Each project is a story. And what you have done by doing the project is you've walked to the song line. You've walked the song line of that story. So, as I say, I generally use it at the beginning of the planning stage in considering alternatives, but it can be adapted and used at different stages too. I hope I've answered your question.
I would like to make a comment, John, because I have studied and discovered really interesting things about force field analysis, and we also have discussed a lot about that. I remember in the past, John used apply technically the force field analysis after the goal, but we discussed it and it makes much more sense in the way John is saying. I would say it's not in planning stage, but maybe it's in the feedback of dreaming stage, because the feedback is what will jump us for the next step for the planning stage. So after the dream circle, I'm saying now technically, Faria, in terms of dragon dreaming. After the dream stage, dream circle, which we collect information and what's the intention for that dream, we usually can apply this technique connected with the body, as John said, because we are in this field of open the perspective, open the possibilities, and it's really good connection with the dream stage because we are connected with this all possibilities of the dream. And when we come with this connection and look what could be the force could limitate the group to go in direction of the goal of the objectives, we are consider alternatives to see what is the real objectives we can create. Because in force field analysis, sometimes we discover a force we cannot change. And if you cannot change that force, it cannot be our goal, our objective. And it gives for us the direction about what's possible, what's not. The second point important about force fields is because help us to create strategies for that force. If it's good and forces can help us to go ahead or not, then we can create strategies for that. And it also help for the objectives, specific objectives and the goal. And I don't know if can be interesting you redo the force field or the force field that information you did in the dreams in this transition of dreaming to plan. You revise that and check if the strategy is good enough. And of course, you can add new forces, because in doing stage and also in the planning stage, you can discover new force. But I will not say you do all the force field, but you revise the strategies, and add or eliminated force. Then in this condition, it's as dream circle and force field analysis is really nice information for celebrate in our states. In each moment you need that, and the group need that. Can really be a good resource to motivate the group. Okay, so I think is Eduardo and then Renato. Yes, Eduardo, welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Eduardo. I'm calling from Belo Horizonte, which is my hometown in Brazil. I just came back here a year ago after 22 years in the US. Brand new to Dragon Dreaming. I've been through a wonderful session and Renata has facilitated. My question is twofold. One, when you ask about discernment, I think that is the $1 million question. It's hard. It's experience helps, but it's really difficult. I guess my more pointed question though is, my experience throughout my career is that the way you graph between where we are and the goal and the strategy, I often, and I appreciate the flexibility of this sense. But my experience is that as we encounter obstacles in executing strategies, very often we end up changing the goals, the objectives, and then you end up in a vicious, not virtual cycle of you change what you're going to do essentially to achieve whether what's possible or what the people that are more powerful want. How do you maintain that tension, and who is accountable for the goal at the end of the day? Is it the individual? Is it the group? What are your thoughts around that? Thank you.
So it's a very good question. I could start here while John solves his chart issue. Also, I think we could hear others about your question, your comment. I am not attached also in the goal. I think it's something really personal. It's my point of view. Okay. I think we can have a huge goal in terms of project, and you have small goals to achieve. I don't know. I think I would answer this depend of what we are talking about and what environment we are talking about. Because it's a business and organization, we have a goal in the end of the year, and I don't know if it's so easy to change it, because depending of levels of people make a decision and the power of that. It's a variable important to think when we talk about change the goal. But if it's my life goal, for sure I could revise it easily. Do you know what I mean? I think cannot say specifically in general for everything. And for this, the discernment is really important. As you are a leader, if you are a leader, it's really important to also to think how you guide the people, how you conduce this group of people. It's a group, it's a real collaborative project, which everyone has a voice. It's another level of challenge, because some people want to change, some people don't want to change. And what is the discernment? We learn to learn. I think it is the first point. We really learn to learn about ourselves, about my personal challenge and blockades. Many people here from the workshop we just finished. We talked a lot about that, because it depends mainly for how I deal with that, how I deal with chance. And because when you say we can change the goal, if it's a huge goal, it's not the easy thing to do. because you put effort, you already work about, and it's a group work about. So need a deep reflection for that, and discernment, and how we learn to have discernment. It just comes from experience. Because this, I love senior people with experience, because these people know so much. My teachers, I honor my teachers, help me and guide me in my way, because I could learn from that, learn how to, if someone walk in front of me and fail, and teach me, look, pay attention this point, because he's a good point for you can fail. So I keep my mind, I open my eyes, because that is an important point to open my perception and to keep attentive. So in the end, I think we can do everything we want. Everything. The point is why and for what. Include change the goal. Not just change, because also it can be a huge block. And some people change up. Each day change the goal. Each day change what want to achieve. It's not good, because you will never achieve something. Depends of the why and for what do you want to change. No? I think it's really personal perspective, and also from my experience. And I think it's more than answer question, it's open reflection. Thank you, Eduardo, for that. It's good, very good reflection. John, do you want to mention something before open further?
Eduardo, just briefly, the biggest project you're doing is called life. Your life is a whole project. And the thing about projects is big projects have little projects inside them. And in Dragon Dreaming, one of the processes we use in the planning stage is to create something we call a Karabiak, which actually maps the pathways through a project with specific tasks and activities that are necessary to achieve the goals. And generally we say that you need to have between 24 to 48 different tasks and activities. If you've got less than 24, it's too few. If you've got more than 48, it's too many. And maybe in that case, if it's got more than 48, you need to break up your project into two completely separate projects. But each task, you need discernment. And each task, you can create a little plan to create it. So what happens is the team breaks up and specific people come together to create and make sure that a specific task gets done. And in that way, you can plan and map out the song lines through the project, from the start of the project up here to the finish of the project down here. And so your question about discernment is absolutely essential all the way. And Liz was talking very strongly there about personal discernment. But the group itself has discernment. We are part of an environment that is much larger than ourselves. And that collective discernment that happens in projects needs to be taken into account. And in that collective discernment, what we find is that there are some people who will be strong allies of our project. But there's also people who will be enemies of the project. And in Dragon Dreaming, we always say it's the enemy of the project that's going to help your project the most. You see, you have people who are active supporters, and they're usually the people in your team. And then you have passive supporters. And we spend a lot of time trying to get the passive supporters to become more active. And then we have passive resistors, people who don't want to support your project, but just don't get involved in any way. And then there are the active resistors, the people who set out to try and sabotage your project. And when you discern someone as being an active resistor, you can celebrate, because that active resistor is capable of supporting your project more than anyone else. And the secret there is to organize to go and see the active resistor and say to that person, I know that you think my project is bad and wrong and stupid and shouldn't be done. And I want to learn the reason why. And you get that person to answer that question and then bring it back to your group and say, this is what the person says. We need to find answers to that question. And that might take a bit of time of going back and revising your dreaming, your planning, your doing, your celebrating, revising everything at that stage, letting go of some aspects of the plan. And it might take weeks even, but then you go back to the active resistor and you say to that active resistor, we really have thought about what you said. And this is what we think, blah-de, 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 blah. And the active resistor will say, yes, but, and they'll come up with another long list. And you do that 2 or 3 times. And eventually, and I know this because it's happened many times for me, I know this, that eventually the active resistor will say, yes, I think it'll work. And now comes the celebration, because you say to the active resistor, thank you so much for what you've done. We could not have improved the project so well without what you've said. And then comes the invitation. The invitation is said, without you, we couldn't have thought of these things. Would you like to come and join the project team? And the interesting thing is, active resistors are already active. You don't need to try and get someone who's passive to become active. And because they're already active, very often they'll say, yes, I'd be glad to. And in this way, what you find is that the reasons why the active resistor has resisted the project is also very often why the passive resistor doesn't think the project is very good. And very often the passive supporter doesn't like conflict. And so the reason why they're passive is that they see the conflict between you and the active resistor. And when the active resistor joins the project, maybe the passive supporter may become active too. So discernment is so essential in this process. One of the things we say in Dragon Dreaming, Jesus said to love your enemy as yourself. In Dragon Dreaming, we say, work with your enemies because they're going to really help your project. Thank you.
Renato?
Hello, Liz and John, everybody. It's really good to be here. It's really heartwarming to get all these insights, and I'm very grateful because of that. So my question is, okay, we do the planning, everybody together, and then we move into the doing stage. And then often dragons start to fly around. And sometimes, or very often in my experience, it's about of a difference of perspective on how to integrate the doing and the planning. So sometimes we find the situation in that something starts to be done by someone in the group without proper planning in the perspective of the others, because that person has everything planned up in her mind, right? But maybe the communication didn't go so well with the group, or and starts to have conflicts there. And sometimes also, like, we plan something together, and then somehow what is done is different than what was said that was going to be done. either because, oh, the circumstance changed or it doesn't make sense to be that way, but without communicating back to the team about the new plan. And this in my experience caused a lot of tension between different types of people, and also resentment, because the people that planned something, maybe they are the planners, and are seeing the doers doing something different, they feel betrayed. I felt like that sometimes. So my question is how to deal with that if you are in the perspective of the planner, and how to make this work, more smoothly, because sometimes it's hard to dance with the dragons, So yeah, thank you.
Exactly. One of the things that happens, I said earlier on that 90% of projects get stuck in the dreaming stage. And in the dreaming stage, your task is to build a team around your dream that support you in making it happen. But then, in conventional planning, not dragon dreaming, hopefully, but in conventional planning, 90% of plans don't work. And the reason why is because conventional planning, when you have a leader of the project, that creates two groups of people who can blame each other when things go wrong. Because the leader of the project will blame the doers for not following the plan, and the doers will blame the leader for being completely out of touch with reality anyway. So you need to find ways of integrating the planning with the doing. And for that, you need really, really good communication. And the interesting thing about communication is built on three words. Com, meaning with or together. The muni part of communication. The muni part is linked to the word money, and it means the changes and exchanges that link. The changes and exchanges that link. And the Asian part of communication comes from the word the process of. So communication is the changes or exchanges that link us together and the process of that. And the more we can develop, it's not by accident that the word communication and community are related. Without communication, there is no community. And without community, because in Dragon Dreaming, building community is the second of the three objectives. The first objective is personal empowerment. The second objective is building community. And the third objective is service to the earth. So you're right that there can be a big breakdown and dragons come out as you get between the planners to the doers. You see, there are some people who love getting things done. And I'll say that the biggest frustration those people have is if they have to work with dreamers all day long. And the planners generally tend to find the celebrators are chaotic and disorganized. And the celebrators very often just find the planners are boring. But you need to have all four kinds of people in your project team. And if you don't have all four kinds of people in your project team, when you're doing the Caribbean, very often you'll find there's a task or an activity that no one in your team has got the skills or abilities to be able to do. So in those cases, you need to be able to identify someone from outside the project and invite them to come in and to contribute their dreams and to add to the planning, because they may have ideas, things that you haven't considered. It's, as you were saying, it's learning how to dance with your dragons. Because where your dragons are sleeping is where your power is sleeping. And as you learn to dance with your dragons, what happens is you begin to enlarge your comfort zone. And it's the edge of your comfort zone that is the learning zone where you learn the most, because it's there that you're being challenged to the greatest extent. Thank you. Thank you, Renato.
I'd like to add something here really practical in terms of dragon dreaming. Renato, I think we also have talked about that. I prefer so much starting any project by celebration. Celebration is when we can learn to listen. Fabian just asked here how we suggested communication be developed within the project after creating the Carabit. I don't know if the communication is after or before Dragon Dream. The communication needs to be part of our life. And we don't learn the communication just for the project. We learn communication for our life. And you can practice it and practice your own way and your deep level of have a good communication in your life, and it will appear in your project. A strongest part of communication is learn to listen. I think it's the first blockage. People don't know to listen. And when we start the project in the celebration, we can listen each other. We can listen what is this person from, where this person comes from, what is their experience, what they know, what are their abilities, what is the intention for this project, what the people are understanding about the project, this idea of project. Of course, here we are talking specifically about collaborative projects. If you are in traditional organization, maybe we need to reflect how we can adapt that. But you can learn, start from your own communication, not say the other need to learn communicate. Start you communicate well. It helps the others also learn and learn through your example. And communication for everything. Listen first. Learn to talk charismatically. Learn to talk without prejudice or try to convince others about your convictions. So the celebration is huge, and but I learned starting this way. Know what's the intention for the project, why I am here with these people, is I know what I will do here. Maybe you receive an invitation to be part of this project. Do you understand what it is? Celebration is this open perspective about the group, about the project, know each other, spend time together. Then we go to the dream. I think it's the point where happen the blockage in the doing stage. Why? It's really common when we start to make a dream circle. It's so excited and people want to dream and they have a lot of dreams and open. But in few rounds, in general intentions. And when you ask, it's really common that when you ask, let's do a dream circle, 2 or 3 rounds, people say, it's enough, my dream is that. Will be the blockage for the planning and the doing stage. So if you don't want to block your project in doing stage, you need really work in the dream stage, because that will be the direction for people. For not start in the doing stage, why I'm here? I'm think something and Renato is think other. Why? Because we didn't dream together. So the communication started that the project, the common intention started in the dream stage when we have the common intention. This blockage don't know what we are talking about. One person is thinking something, the other is thinking about other thing, because you didn't dream enough in terms of rounds and rounds of dreams, just for inspirational dreams, and also specifically things, concrete aspects of the project. And then you can plan. Spend time in plan. Not do it fast or organize this. Talking about that. What's the feedback in planning stage? Reconsider some aspects. It's clear enough, the objective. Sometimes the objective is for that moment. I have this experience in projects too. If we have a huge dream for 5 years, but we are planning 6 months, 1 year, sometimes appear in that objective what is important for that first month. Maybe we need to work in that specifically aspect, and also come back in the comment of Eduardo. Then after 6 months, we can revise and then do the objective for the next 6 months. To have this flexibility. You know, when we talk about collaborative projects, we are talking about revise, reconsider, talk, communication, no, and not just one thing and it's done. Maybe it's the huge blockage. We think we did that, and if everyone stands the same way, go ahead. No, we need time by time, talk again, revise, reconsider, maybe change the goal, and continue going. What I see in the collaborative project is people don't have patience to talk objectively about some aspect. Really talk about what's happening there. It's the way. Okay, Beatriz. Bea, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for these Zooms, are so inspiring. Today I did have a meeting before this with Santi. Do you remember Santi and Juliana Simoes?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to try to make, we're going to work on making a workshop in Barcelona. And we were talking about, celebration. And we were talking about how to not do the things that we normally do, no? Because when I started doing dragon dreaming, I have kind of an schema, a planning of what to do. And I worked with Julia, which was so much of a planner. So we did what it was in the plan. We did not do anything else, okay? So then I learned many things, and I can see that in 20 hours you can do, in an introductory workshop, you can do different things, no? And also you can do, maybe I've done a 2.0 dragon dreaming, another 20 hours, not an intensive, but something in between to teach some other things and practice some other things. And now we were thinking, and my question about this is, I have 2 questions. First one is, I did have a big aha today, because I know I'm not very much of a planner. Normally I used to be a doer. Now I'm more in the celebrator. And so we wanted to do it for November, and November is here already. So we thought maybe it's better in March. And for me, it's like, wow, now I work in communication. And for me, 6-month planning is like a lot of time, you know. I do things like for 3 months like this, for next month, you know, I'm all the time running. So I thought, oh my God, 6 months more, maybe it's more than 6 months, but no. And I was like, my God. So I need to take the time for planning, and also the letting go is also a very good aha, no, that I had today. And I was a planner, and he was like, we had to do this, you know, with Boogie Garcia from Systemic Facilitation. And he was saying, okay, I can test your plan. and someone else can test your plan, because I'm also doing systemic dragon dreaming in the floor, like testing the different stages and things that he's doing. And we say, okay, that's good. So another wall opened to me, you know, and he talked about Carabert, and he said that Carabert normally, he found Carabert to be very complicated. Like people for companies, they see that in the wall, and what is that? You know, what does that Carabert mean? And I told them that we normally we say that we can put it in an Excel or in a Trello or in an Asana project management tool, whatever you want, so that company people can think about it like more linear or more easy for them. And he was not sure about that. And I find that we don't have normally, maybe I can ask you sometime, John, about how is the good balance and a good Carabert done, because I've been facilitated with several facilitators in Spain, like Alicia, Jose Luis, Julia, Luna, Daniela, and we have different styles, and each of us, we do the Carabert different. And I guess each group it would be different, no? But sometimes Shaba from Brazil said, no, we have to have the same task in each stage. Another one says, no, we have. So I have, sometimes I really have some kind of doubts about how is a well done a Carabert, and how can we manage to, for example, include some other tasks that people, because once I did a facilitation for a group, but they said, oh, this is great, but we're not organized like this. We want a coordination group that coordinates everybody. And I say, but this is not very dragon dreaming, you know, because dragon dreaming works in another way. And they couldn't. And I said, well, maybe you can put a coordination task, and the coordination task will coordinate the other task, more or less. But, you know, there's no coordination team in dragon dreaming. And they were like, I don't understand it. And at the end, they didn't go for it. And I can see that companies and business as usual, they don't get dragon dreaming philosophy, and they don't use it. And people, they just get the information and say, oh, this is great for thinking another way, blah, blah, blah. And they don't use it. So this is, for me, is I don't know what it is. And I don't know if I can have some kind of enlightenment or aha moment in an answer that you might give me. Thank you. A lot of passion.
There's about 6 questions there. So I'll try to start with the last one first. With the Carabert, it's called the Carabert because the Carabert literally means the spider's web. And where I got Carabert from was a town called Halls Creek in Western Australia. And in those days, I used the conventional planning name for a Carabert. So if you look at CPM or PERT, CPM is
Who's that?
It's PERT is the Program Evaluation Review Technique. And CPM is the Communication Planning method. It was actually the method that they used to build the Saturn V rocket that put a man on the moon. Now, in the Saturn V rocket, there were 3 million different parts, and each part had to be built on time, to specification, and tested before it could be put into the building of the rocket that put a man on the moon. And so I say, if the method can be used to put a man on the moon, it can be used for anything. Now, what happened was, when I did the original Carabert, I used to do them left to right, with the start on the left and the finish on the right. But I changed that to do it the other way around, from the top to the bottom. Based on, when I was doing this workshop in Halls Creek in Western Australia, there was an old Aboriginal man sitting in the back of the room with a very funny smile on his face. And at the end of the workshop, he came up to me and he took me by the hand and he led me out to the foyer, the opening of the venue. And there on the wall was a painting. And it was his painting. And he said, "That is the painting of my songlines." And he said, "What you've just done is to show us a white man's way of building songlines." So, research on CPM and on PERT, and you may find in there the history of the technique that you can use with conventional businesses to convince them that it isn't just flaky stuff, that it isn't just dreaming, unreal. It might be helpful for you to find a way of explaining it in language that they understand, because that's the communication that can help. Because we need to be able to translate what we understand into the language that others can understand too. I hope that helps. Thank you for your question.
I would like to add something to Bia.
Good.
I think, Bia, many people do in different way because in reality, they don't know exactly what comes from Karabirt, so the technical base of Karabirt is the critical path method, as John just said, and you can look for that. And they also learn really how to do Karabirt, and then they do a confusion about that. And when teach, you don't know how to teach for people understand why in the end become that way. Because when we learn to do Karabirt step by step, and the reason why in the end we have that configuration, it becomes easy. Karabirt is not difficult. And what they try is to make it simple and limited, and not take the essence of Karabirt, which is shown to us, as I say in the beginning. We are planning what will happen in life. Karabirt shows it. Karabirt shows for us the thing we will cross, paths we will cross each one. People need to have a meeting, different groups need to have a meetings, and it's what will happen. And when some person tried to make Karabirt linear, I have here see some people try that. We simple take out the essence of dragon dreaming and the nature of Aboriginal knowledge, which is to learn, to teach us how the things go and back. I start some task and end that, but in the same way, in parallel, I'm doing other. And maybe it is what is the challenge for people to understand, because in our Occidental world, they thought it's linear and fast, needs to be done really fast in linear way. And maybe if you talk with people about that, about the nature of do projects and life, the things happen in parallel. The things happen the same time. The activities, the tasks across each other, the groups need to meeting for that, can help they understand. It's one point. The other point is we need to actualize ourselves and study a little bit. Now, I think many people try to teach dragon dreaming, say it is easy. It's not easy, dragon dreaming, not easy. I'm just finished the translation of a book I'm producing from my studies. I think it will help you on that. And the other point I want to mention is maybe when you teach dragon dreaming, you don't try from your conviction of it is the way to do the things, but give space for people, stimulate these ideas. You know, it's not the first time you do a workshop. People, you understand everything, and because we live in a completely different culture of what we are trying to show. No, I think you need to have patience with yourself, and also how you training, and adapt your training for the group you teach. No? If it's open dragon dreaming for everyone goes, then you teach dragon dream traditional, and the people you take what they can understand. Maybe they cannot understand everything in that once, just that moment. Then maybe the next workshop, or maybe it just wake up then for other possibilities to do a project. This is a great thing for our world now, if people just wake up and continue the investigation, and maybe they come back. If you do it for organization, maybe you need to change the language. You have the philosophy, and how you can adapt this philosophy for that specific group. And my suggestion for you is, well, we can talk any moment you want, but mainly I suggest you don't be so attached in your conviction, and give space for the others. Not for it to be 20 hours of workshop is nothing for people change. It is for they wake up and select what could touch people, for they don't be resistant enough and stop to looking for new possibilities and investigation new possibilities, but try to choose what you can share and teach. Things can stimulate the curiosity for new ways. You know, not if maybe it's not to teach Carabert because it can make it so confusion, but you can go deeper in the philosophy or the model of dragon dreaming and show some tools, and it just stimulates the curiosity. And maybe in this way we can spread more the philosophy, and the philosophy of collaboration, of care with the pillars we have for Dragon Dream. No personal growth as the earth and building community. And be patient. Be patient. Okay.
Patient or
Perfect.
passionate?
Both.
Lizandra.
Both. So we are just going to the end. I would like to say welcome. Maybe the last words, if someone wants to share. Don't want to share the last words. I would like to say thank you. Was really motivated and inspired to meet you and your questions and shares. Thank you a lot. I also take this opportunity for the last words to say, we started this dialogue, this idea with the plan of have a meeting every month, but in July we need to change our plans. And the second semester we did less than once per month. And the next and the last meeting for this year will be the last week of November. I think it's 29th September, but as I do, I send the invitation and the link the way we are doing now. Thank you, everyone. Last words.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. The more the merrier.
Liz, would you like to do a group photo of us all?
Yeah, could be. Do you authorize me to make a photo? Yeah?
Yes.
Great, smile. I know, sorry, I did a mistake here. Oh, now we go. Now, yes. Good. Thank you. See you.
Bye. Thank you so much for
Bye.
doing
Thank
this. Good to see
you.
you.
You
Liz.
take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.
Ciao. Bye,
Take care.
Jerome. Bye,